Forever shorter than you think.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is a third original tag, so I'm doing this in time for Tag Tuesday, and see if you like it. It's a tag all about relationships. It's a relationships tag. I'll tell you why I'm doing it, and then I'll go through my huge pile of books that I'm going to be doing for the prompts. Basically, I thought it just came to me, this idea of doing a relationships tag, because at the moment, it's kind of the anniversary of when me and my wife became a couple, and it is the weekend or the week of when we renewed our vows. So we've been together as a couple. We've been together for 31 years now, and next year will be our 30th wedding anniversary. And also recently, my daughter got married as well. So I just thought it'd be nice to honour those things with a relationships tag. So this is all about long relationships with authors, long relationships with books, and relationships in books within characters as well. So there's 8 prompts. I'll crack on straight away. The first prompt is, what book or books have you had the longest? So as far as what you've owned the longest. And I found it difficult to kind of hone it down to one book, but I know there are a few books I'm going to show you now that I've had for a long time. And I'm going to start with the book that I think I've had the longest, but I've already mentioned it a few times on the channel in other tag videos, and that's Ghastly Beyond Belief by Neil Gaiman and Kim Newman. It's a book of science fiction quotations. The first half of it is books, and the second half of it's films. It's an amazing book. I love it to death. It's one of my favourite books, but it's also definitely one of my oldest books, possibly my oldest book, the one that I've owned for the longest. I had this when I was about 12 or something, and I think I think almost everything else I had at the time I've either got rid of and rebought. So this is the copy I had when I was a child. So Ghastly Beyond Belief, Neil Gaiman and Kim Newman. I also know that this is from that period as well, so I know my photo novel of Sit on the Edge of Forever. Do you remember these? These are really cool. So these are literally like pictures from the stills from the TV show. It's literally the episode, but as like a comic book, but with stills from the episode. I think there was about 5 of them, and I did have 3 of them. I think I've only got 2 now, but this I've had for that long. So this was based on the story by Harlan Ellison, and it's a classic. But yeah, a bit of a nice little sort of curiosity as well. You may know, if you've seen my videos, that I collect books by cartoonists, and my 2 all-time favourite cartoonists are Gay Wilson and Charles Addams. And I know that I had this book, Is Nothing Sacred, by Gay Wilson, really early on. So this belonged to a friend of mine, and I immediately fell in love with it when I was around his house. And he said, "You can have it if you want." I was like, "What?" And he said, "Yeah." So he gave this to me. It's a bit knackered, so it's kind of falling apart a little bit, but I absolutely love it so much. I really love this book, and partly because it kind of started me on my journey of loving cartoonists. So Is Nothing Sacred by Gay Wilson. I'll give you an example of one of the... another book I've had a long time, and I don't remember when I got it, but I know I've had it for a long time, and definitely before I was married, in my teenage years, I bought this fantastic book about Tex Avery, King Cartoons by Joe Adamson. So this is a really important book. If you're interested in this and you're interested in books that's similar, I did do a video just on books about American cartoons. Actually more than that, but mostly American cartoons, but just cartoons in general. And obviously not cartoonists, but cartoons, as in animated film. So I did do a video on those. Second prompt is what author's work have you had a close relationship with? So, delving right back, who have you been reading for the longest time? So not necessarily your favourites, although they probably are going to be your favourites, but which author have you had the longest amount of time reading their work? So for this, I am going to pick 2 authors. It won't be a surprise what I pick. And I'm just going to show a couple of books that represent them. So first author is Richard Matheson, and obviously he's most famous for I Am Legend, which is it my favourite book? Is it my favourite book? I'm going to say it's my joint favourite book. So I love this book very much, and I also love The Shrinking Man. So that's another one of his famous ones. Both adapted into movies, obviously. We'll talk about that another time. I've already talked about it once on the video, and this is a really nice book, which is an anthology of stories inspired by Richard Matheson from people like that and more. So this is a really nice collection, and I was very pleased to get it, and it's nice to see a tribute to Richard Matheson in book form. And then the other one I was going to mention was Harlan Ellison. I'm building up to a couple of videos about him for next year, and I've got a whole load of books by him, but just as a little representative selection, this I know was the first book I ever bought by him, All the Sounds of Fear. I bought this in Star Bookshop for £1.50, I think it was, and I was hooked straight away, and I had to get everything I could by him because I absolutely love this book. It's got I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream in it, and it's also got Repent Harlequin Said the TikTok Man, which is my favourite Harlan Ellison story, and probably my second favourite short story altogether. But it's got The Discarded in it. It's got The Silver Corridor, All the Sounds of Fear. It's got some great stuff in there. So anyway, that turned me on to Harlan Ellison. And then this is the latest one I bought. So I bought this a few months ago because it was one of the ones I didn't have, Strange Wine. So that's been added to my collection recently. And a book that I've had this a while now, but it was so important I had it because it was quite rare. And every single time I saw it secondhand, it was so expensive. But I did manage to get the Glass Teat. I mean, ironically, now you can get it at a reasonable secondhand price now, it seems. But for years, I couldn't get it. So it was a real nice thing when I managed to get that, which is his rants about television. He's a very ranty person. So that's representative of Harlan Ellison. So my third prompt is, can you name a new author that you have started a relationship with? Someone that you think you're going to read for a long time who has really kind of knocked you for six recently. So that's the third prompt. And for that one, I'm going to choose Brandon Sanderson because early this year, I had my first encounter with him. The first book of The Mistborn. I really loved it. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. The pacing was fantastic. I really cared about the characters. He definitely knows how to write. And it's a bit weird that I've waited this long to read the second book. And I might need a bit of a recap. But I just really, really enjoyed it. It was really cool. If you are unsure about whether you'd like it because you wonder if it's just hype or if you're into big fantasy tomes like that, it's a really fun read. And it's basically a glorified heist in a lot of ways, but with lots of different characters interweaving and the development of an interesting magic system in this as well. But yeah, I absolutely love this. So that's a new author that I'll be looking into more next year as well, but discovered him this year finally. The fourth prompt is name a book that you would say influenced you in your formative years. So I've actually got several of these, but I wanted to go for first. I wanted to reference something that I don't know if I've referenced it before. I might have done, but in the loft, I just went in the loft to just check to see if there was anything in there I wanted to include. And there's a big box full of about 50 odd books that are all mad books. So that's Alfred E. Newman. And Mad magazine was a big part of my childhood and my formative years. So I just got a selection down. So this one's Sing Along with Mad. And we've got a Don Martin book, Don Martin Bounces Back. He was an amazing cartoonist. Oh, there's another one there, Captain Klutz. And Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Mad. These are usually just random titles, and then the contents are just whatever came out that year. Raving Mad. I know that one you don't see very often, so I was quite pleased to see that one. Polyunsaturated Mad. And Hopping Mad. So those are just some selections. I mean, I've literally got a big box full of them. So the Mad magazine was a big part of my childhood. So that was one way that I was going to answer that question. I've also got a fantastic book of Monty Python Flying Circus sketches. It's called Just the Words, and it's all of the sketches from the Flying Circus series. And Monty Python have always been a huge, huge part of my life. I'm a massive Python fan. But, yeah, Python are very, very special. And similarly, I've probably mentioned before, well, I definitely have mentioned before, my love of the Marx Brothers. And this book was a real find. When I found this, I knew about it before I found it, but I used to go around loads of second-hand bookshops looking for books about the Marx Brothers or books that were like script books and those kind of things. And you get these things which are like scenes from the film. And this one was, I'd heard about it a lot. This was written about a lot, Wire Duck. And I think it's because of the particular films that it takes the material from. But I was very pleased to have this, and it is quite rare. I've seen it a couple of times since, but I've had this a long time. Again, I've got 2 boxes full of Marx Brothers books. And then one last response to that prompt is something I haven't talked about on the channel before, and that is when I was a student, I studied A-level theatre studies, and in that it really changed me. It made me a lot more politically aware. It made me think about some of the existentialists, and that whole delve into the meaning of life was quite a big thing for me at the time. And there was 3 playwrights that had a big effect on me. So the first one, you couldn't really deny that this guy really changed my worldview, and that's Bertolt Brecht. And I saw The Good Person Szechuan live with Fiona Shaw playing the main role at the National Theatre. That was a really impactful event. That was when I saw The Good Person Szechuan by Brecht. Also, I'm a huge fan of Harold Pinter, and that started then. And I think the way he characterises humanity with this underlying unspoken passive violence and distrust and paranoia is just phenomenal. And if you don't know his stuff, I definitely recommend you go see one of his plays live, because he's an amazing playwright and really thought-provoking. So there's Harold Pinter, and then this was slightly different because this was the only play by this guy that really hit me, but it really did though, and that's Endgame by Samuel Beckett. So those playwrights had a big effect on me on my formative years when I was a student. So prompt number 5 is name a relationship in a book that was central to the plot. So pick a book that's got a really nice central relationship. And what I've done there, I've picked the sequel to Sea of Rust called Day Zero. It's a lovely book. I was so pleased when I read it because I really like Sea of Rust a lot. And when this came out, I thought, oh, a prequel. That sounds interesting. Yeah, I think I just said sequel. It's a prequel. Oh, this looks interesting. And I was really hoping it would be really good because I wasn't as fussed about a fantasy book I read by the same author. So I was hoping this would be as good as Sea of Rust. And it really was. It was really good. And this book is entirely about the relationship between Pounce and Ezra. So Ezra's a boy that is having to cope with the start of this robot apocalypse that's happening where they're taking over the world. And Pounce is a nanny bot that's been charged with looking after Ezra and realises that he's the only one that can look after him. And it kind of goes through their adventures. And it's just really, really good. And it's got a beautiful ending. So yeah, I definitely recommend this book. But it's got a really lovely central relationship between the two of them. And then prompt number 6 is name a book that has a great depiction of a family in it. So what I've decided to do is to do a found family. So this is something I read relatively recently. So I read this a month or so ago, a couple of months ago. And this is Nicholas Eames' Bloody Rose. So this is the sequel to Kings of the Wild. And I'm not sure which one I like the most. I think I like this one the most. But if I do like this one the most, it will be because of the relationship between these mercenaries and the fact that they do get this found family, and there is this sense that they all really care about each other, even though they're quite different. There's a little bit of distrust in there and wariness, but they would do anything for each other. And I think it's just a really interesting dynamic, and it's written really well, and you really care about them. And they are quite different, the characters. So Bloody Rose is my choice for that prompt. Prompt number 7 is name a book that features a love or an obsession with an art form. And the reason why I came up with that idea is because I've been with my wife for 31 years, and in all that time, she's been married to a musician. So there's been lots of gigs, there's been lots of rehearsals, there's been times when we've had to delay or put off something because of some sort of musical reason, like a gig or something like that. And it's always been a part of our lives. So it's become part of her life by proxy because she was married to me, or she was with me before we were married. So I thought it was quite a nice prompt to stick in there because it kind of makes you think about another kind of book to bring into this that's a little bit different. So naming a book that features a love or obsession with an art form. So with this, I've chosen It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken by Seth. So this is a collection that's been put together of the Palookaville comic series that Seth did, and it's all about his obsession with a 1940s New Yorker cartoonist and him trying to find out more and more about his life, and it affects his own relationships, and it's very interesting, and it's so different, and it's got this sort of reflective, still atmosphere for the whole thing, and I like the illustrative style as well. And as I said, it's all about this guy's obsession with a previously forgotten, or what seemingly forgotten, New Yorker cartoonist from the 40s. So yeah, if you haven't checked that out, check out that book by Seth. And then my last prompt is to tag people. So I'm going to tag 3 people. So Micah Cummins, I'd love to know what he thinks of these prompts. Ollie from Criminolly, he does a tag every Tuesday without fail. And Brandy from Booklectic. So I've just got to know Brandy from Booklectic a little bit recently, and I'd love to know how she responds to these prompts as well. But please do the tag if you think it's interesting and you'd like to do it. It's my 3rd original tag, and it's quite fun. See what you think. And as I'm at it, and it's all about relationships, big shout out to my wife Ali. Thanks a lot for watching this, and again, massive thanks to the subscribers. Please make a comment below about your thoughts on these things, and I'll see you later. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Then the years float by in the blink of an eye, and our memories are made by the cards we get played, and our future is written with